Hi everyone, I'm Jen and I'm so glad you're here. Today, let's geek out about using a prioritization matrix to pick your favorite book of the year. So, it's pretty common to use something like a book bracket to figure out your best reads of the year. And if you didn't watch this video, feel free to go back and look at it, where I did exactly that and figured out my favorite book of the year by using a traditional book bracket, which is pretty common. The first person I saw do it was Elizabeth over at Plant Based Bride, and if you haven't checked out her stuff, you absolutely should. Maybe finish this video first, but then definitely go check out her stuff. And then there are some issues though with the book bracket, and that has led me to using I've called it my head-to-head for 2024, but technically it's a prioritization matrix, which is a tip and trick from the productivity world, generally used for how to prioritize tasks when it feels like everything has to get done. And then it was Jashi Corinne, her name's Jess, but Jashi Corinne on YouTube who first I saw use it for books. And a couple years ago, I had done a book bracket where something very similar to what happened to me this year happened, where something that I loved a lot lost out pretty early on in the rounds to something that was just stronger, whereas something that was fairly, weaker made it into the bracket at all. And then, lost rather quickly. But it looks like this book was way better than this book because look how far in the rounds it made it. But in actuality, I like them kind of about the same. And so one of the downfalls of the book bracket is it will give you your favorite, but everything else is just kind of not your favorite. It didn't make it to the end. It didn't win. But in terms of these 12 books I've picked, which one was my least favorite? Okay, I know which one. Which one was my fourth, or my second best favorite in case I'm trying to recommend to somebody who doesn't really like legends and lattes and that's not going to be their thing. I don't know what kind of a human that would be because legends and lattes is amazing. But if I were thinking about like, oh, they don't really like fantasy, or oh, they're looking for something with a little more meat to the story, or they're not going to be comfortable with the queer relationship that exists here. Like, what's my second favorite book? And my book bracket, fundamentally, because of the way it's set up, cannot give me that information. And so the idea then behind using this head-to-head prioritization matrix is that it will give me not only my favorite book of the year and my least favorite book of the ones I've picked here, but it will rank the rest of them fundamentally all together so that I have a ranked list of the books that I read for the year. I've made a couple of changes. So if you watched my video where I went through all the books that I had read to make my Hall of Fame over here, my best book from each month, you are probably already familiar with the idea that in January I just didn't have a lot of books that I loved. I liked them at the time. They're good. They're 4 stars, but I didn't have any books that I gave a 5-star to. And then there were other months like June and I think September, that I had multiple books that were very much in the running for my favorite book of the month and would have beat some of these weaker entries. So what I did when I moved over to my head-to-head is, you might recognize like the first book on here, I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay, is not anywhere over here. I subbed out January's pick and November's pick for 2 runner-up picks from previous months or from different months where I had 2 books and it was a struggle to decide between them. They should end up in the middle of the pack. If they end up at the top, something's weird and I did something wrong about picking my favorite book for each month. But what that'll do for me is I don't really feel the need to put this one in here or this one in here. I know they're towards the bottom of the pack and those were stronger contestants. They were just limited by how many good things I had read that month, that they were my second favorite thing that month. But in the whole pool of all of the books that I read in a year, they're still pretty high. They're still pretty close to the top of my favorites. So the way that this works is you have this weird step pyramid looking thing. And what it does is, so each book has a letter. And again, they're mostly these, but with this one subbed out for I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay. And this one, Anthony Horowitz's Close to Death, has been subbed out for The Book Eaters. Otherwise, it's the same. And what you do is you make each of them face off head to head, and you put the letter of the book that wins in here, or the task. Again, if you're doing this for prioritizing tasks that need to get done, you put the letter in each box for which one wins with that matchup. And then at the bottom, you count them up for how many times it won, how many spots that letter is represented up here. And then it gives you a ranked list. The one with the most number won, the ones with the least lost, and it will rank it in the middle for all of the different ones along the way. So let's get into what these actually were for me. And this is going to be agonizing. As hard as a book bracket is for me, there are still matchups that are easy, but it doesn't make me match everything up. This is going to make me match everything up. So first off, I have some questions for you up against Under the Whispering Door. And I'm considering this by not only just what did I like better, because this is my stuff and I'm allowed to just pick what I like, but also what would I recommend to other people? What would I reread? Because rereadability is part of a truly great book or a favorite book for me. So those are some things I'm considering as I do this. And again, I'm stalling because I don't want to have to pick between I have some questions for you and Under the Whispering Door. Okay, it's Under the Whispering Door. And since that's book B, I'm going to write B right here. And then I have to consider I have some questions for you against East of Eden. I would probably reread no, it's probably East of Eden. I actually really enjoyed rereading East of Eden. Under the Whispering Door or East of Eden is Under the Whispering Door. So I'm going to put a B right here. I have some questions for you versus Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's Dungeon Crawler Carl. I have already reread Dungeon Crawler Carl. Under the Whispering Door or Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's Dungeon Crawler Carl. East of Eden or Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's Dungeon Crawler Carl. How to Solve Your Own Murder, or I Have Some Questions for You. I'd probably reread I Have Some Questions for You. Under the Whispering Door, yeah, that one wins there. East of Eden or How to Solve Your Own Murder. It's East of Eden. Dungeon Crawler Carl or How to Solve Dungeon Crawler Carl. And then Legends and Lattes. Oh man, this is an easy-ish one because it beats that. Legends and Lattes are Under the Whispering Door. Yeah, it beats that. East of Eden. Still Legends and Lattes. Probably Legends and Lattes over Dungeon Crawler Carl. And over How to Solve Your Own Murder. So then I've got The World We Make versus I Have Some Questions for You. It's The World We Make. But I'd probably do Under the Whispering Door over The World We Make. And then this gets to win over East of Eden. Does it win over Dungeon Crawler Carl? Just the first dungeon. You know what? I don't think it does. I think The World We Make gets to win there. And so, okay, versus How to Solve Your Own Murder. Yeah, it's The World We Make. And Legends and Lattes, though. It's Legends and Lattes. And you can kind of see that, like, because it wins almost everything in this row, it's going to be higher ranked than something that's barely winning. So, like, I Have Some Questions for You only has gotten to win once so far. Okay, Homecoming. Probably I Have Some Questions for You. Under the Whispering Door. East of Eden. Definitely Dungeon Crawler Carl. Ooh, Homecoming or How to Solve Your Own Murder. Probably How to Solve Your Own Murder. And then definitely Legends and Lattes and The World We Make, which is a bummer. I did like Homecoming. I remember liking it a lot when I was reading it. Okay, The Memory Police or I Have Some Questions. Oh, The Memory Police wins there. Ooh, does it win against Under the Whispering Door? You know, I think it does. It definitely probably wins over East of Eden, too. Does it win over Dungeon Crawler Carl? See, these for me are like being in an entirely different mood. So Dungeon Crawler Carl is fun and funny, and the plot is carrying it. I'm not worrying so much about like craft and structure and style, whereas The Memory Police wins on those fronts. Okay, I've talked myself into it. It's The Memory Police. And definitely over How to Solve Your Own Murder. but probably not Legends and Lattes, which again is running mostly on like plot and vibes, and I'm not as critical of the writing on things that are just pure entertainment fun, whereas this has more craft and structure, but and is also entertaining, but not in the same fun genre kind of way. Okay, so the Memory Police or the World We Make. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, probably the World We Make. Yeah. And then the Memory Police over Homecoming is the Memory Police. The Weaver and the Witch Queen, or I have some questions for you. It's the Weaver and the Witch Queen versus Under the Whispering Door. Yeah, it's the Weaver and the Witch Queen still. It's over East of Eden too. And Dungeon Crawler Carl. Yeah, Weaver and the Witch Queen. How to Solve Your Own Murder is Weaver and the Witch Queen. See, and this one lost fairly recently in the book bracket, didn't it? Yeah, it lost in the first sort of round. The only thing it didn't beat was the Memory Police. It lost in the first round, and yet here it is beating out some things like Under the Whispering Door that did make it to the second round. And this is why this is harder sometimes, but it will give you a better idea of your ranked list. So Weaver and the Witch Queen versus, where am I at? Legends and Lattes. Oh, it's Legends and Lattes for sure. Weaver and the Witch Queen or the World We Make. Oh no. Oh, I hate it. Oh, I hate it. So very good, both of them. Oh dear. Okay. And the writing style is good on both of those things. The world building is really good on both of those things. I'm giving it to the World We Make, even if I recognize that I also might be giving it here because this is the second book in a duology, and I really loved the first book in the duology, so I recognize that that may be a bias that is showing up here, but I'm going with it anyway because this is my game, and I can play it however I want. Weaver and the Witch Queen versus Homecoming is definitely the Weaver and the Witch Queen, but versus the Memory Police is the Memory Police. Okay, Book Eaters, which I didn't have to deal with last time because it didn't make it onto this list because it lost to, I don't remember now. Memory Police, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, Book Eaters, or I have some questions for you. Yeah, it's probably the Book Eaters. See, and that's why the one book per month isn't always the best structure either, because, well, I guess this didn't make it onto the list either, but I was just thinking like this lost to something else and didn't make it on the list, but it did beat that, but that also didn't make it on the list, so maybe that's not the best example. Let's see, but this is a good example where like I have some questions for you beat out How to Solve Your Own Murder, whereas I have some questions for you didn't even make it to this list, but How to Solve Your Own Murder did, just based on what I read and when. Okay, back to the Book Eaters. Book Eaters versus Under the Whispering Door. Ooh. Under the Whispering Door is light. Well, it deals with death and stuff, but it's uplifting and hopeful. And Book Eaters is definitely darker in tone. Which probably means I liked it better. I tend to read very dark things. At least that's what Storygraph stats always tell me. Book Eaters or East of Eden. Probably East of Eden, actually. Dungeon Crawler Carl. Or the Book Eaters. Yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl, probably. How to Solve Your... No, the Book Eaters wins over How to Solve Your Own Murder. Which I didn't think of that as being a particularly weak month, although that was up against a lot of Shakespeare. A lot of the things I read that month were Shakespeare. Because school. Book Eaters versus Legends and Lattes. Oh, it's Legends and Lattes, for sure. I don't know why I can't put a letter in the middle of the box, but I can't. Okay, Book Eaters versus The World We Make. It's The World We Make. Book Eaters versus Homecoming. It's the Book Eaters. Book Eaters versus the Memory Police. No, it's the Memory Police for sure. And then Book Eaters versus Weaver and the Witch Queen is the Weaver and the Witch Queen. Okay, one more line. Here we go. Book of Doors versus I have some questions for you. No, it's the Book of Doors. I really liked the Book of Doors. Under the Whispering Door. Ooh. Battle of the Doors. Under the Whispering Door or the Book of Doors? It might be recency bias, but I'm still going with the Book of Doors. Or East of Eden. I'd rather read the Book of Doors again. Or Dungeon Crawler Carl. Oh dear. Why do I do this to myself? Okay, Book of Doors or Dungeon Crawler Carl. Okay, let's go. I'm going with Carl. How to Solve Your Own Murder or the Book of Doors. It's the Book of Doors. It's Legends and Lattes, though. That's still going to end up number one. The World We Make or Book of Doors. Probably The World We Make. Homecoming or Book of Doors. It's definitely the Book of Doors. Memory Police or the Book of Doors. Oh, no. Did I already decide this? I did. Okay, so in my book bracket, I decided Memory Police over Book of Doors. And I went with Book of Doors, which I'm going to stick with here. I could see it being Memory Police, though. That's actually really tough for me. But I'll leave it the way that I did it before. Book of Doors versus Weaver and the Witch Queen. It's got to be the Book of Doors. And then Book Eaters or Book of Doors. Ooh, that's actually kind of tough. But it's the Book of Doors. Okay, and so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add all of these up. Like there's 1A, 2 A's, so 2. But I'm not going to make you watch me. Sorry for tapping my pen on the table. I'm not going to make you watch me add all of those things up. I'm just going to add them up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I am back. I have totaled up all of the times that particular book won its pairing down here, and then use that as a guideline to make my list 1 through 12 of the best books that I read last year. It's no surprise that Legends and Lattes still comes out on top, because that's kind of how this works. The book bracket will show you the best book that you read because it went up against all of the other things. But what are some surprises in here is that The World We Make ended up as number 2, and it lost back here. And I thought that was really interesting that when paired against these in this set of 3, I had picked the Book of Doors over The World We Make, which was true back here too, that I let the Book of Doors win over... Oh, no, I didn't. I had The World We Make winning over the Book of Doors, which implies that should be The World We Make. But it also has a difference about which one won over Dungeon Crawler Carl. No, it didn't. It's simply that. So I made a different decision a second time. That happens. But also, like, the Memory Police ended up as book 3, and so did the Book of Doors. So, like, The World We Make, the Memory Police, and the Book of Doors, this was second place. Okay, I made a different choice this time, so it should probably be here, and that kind of looks like second place. But these 2 were then tied for third. So what I read in the second half of the year was stronger than what I read in the first half of the year, because these books show up as, you know, number 3, tied for third place, The Memory Police and the Book of Doors. And then tied for 5th place, we've got Dungeon Crawler Carl and The Weaver and the Witch Queen, which, again, The Weaver and the Witch Queen, if we flip back here, now that I've zoomed in, if we flip back, The Weaver and the Witch Queen lost out really early on to the Memory Police, but that's because of how highly rated this was for me, not because that this wasn't a good book or deserving of being in the bracket. So there are just some differences that are the reason that I like to do this prioritization matrix, because it gives me a more granular view of the things that I was enjoying. Anyway, number 7 came in as Under the Whispering Door. 8, tied for 8, East of Eden and the Book Eaters. 10, I Have Some Questions for You, and then How to Solve Your Own Murder and Homecoming, which is interesting for me that I Have Some Questions for You and the Book Eaters ended up here tied for number 8 and then number 10 as alternates over these 2, which actually won their entire month category. I feel kind of bad for Homecoming, because had I left in the 2 books from January and from November that I subbed out, Homecoming would probably be up here in this at least 10th place, but I subbed out the weakest ones, which then made it the weakest one, and now I'm anthropomorphizing my books, and I feel bad for it. Anyway, because it's a perfectly lovely book, and it is still my 12th favorite book that I read this year out of 70 books that I read this year. So it still did really well, but I feel bad for making those adjustments that now put it at the bottom of the list. But I do find it interesting that these two, Book Eaters and I Have Some Questions for You, that I subbed in as alternates, it just justifies for me that that was the right call, because they are some of my favorite books and they beat out some of the things that did make it to the list originally. Anyway, there is my head-to-head for 2024. Before you go, let me know in the comments what your favorite book that you read in 2024 was. I'm always on the lookout for good recommendations. Thanks so much for geeking out with me today. Let's hang out together again soon.